Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, Spiritborn, Vessel of Hatred, Blizzard, spending money on Diablo. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I decided to pick up Diablo 4 for a little bit and have a romp the other day. It took about 6 hours to get to level 50, which is where the game starts to sort of top off and you get into the Paragon system. And I'll upload a short soon about how I did that. There's a pretty efficient strategy for anyone who's coming back to the game or new to the game. Essentially, Helltide is how you do it. And you know what? I actually think the game might be worth it with the changes that are coming in. And before you click off the video in disgust, just let me explain why I'm being a traitor to our Path of Exile brethren. Okay, so the Campfire chat for the 2.0 patch was the other day. I'll put a link in the description below. And a lot of things that were covered off in the game were actually, or the changes coming to the game and the discussions were very different to the previous Campfire chats. And I like the direction they're moving in, and I'll clarify that. So, a few of the take-home points that I got from it, as someone from the outside who played on release, obviously I'm an experienced Path of Exile player and build maker and whatnot, but I do like the things that they're talking about. So sort of going down the list here, speeding up progression and or readjusting game progression is one that was a big issue I had on the release. And now this seems to be in a good place with Helltide farming, but this is getting further improved, which is really good. Beyond this word, they're actually starting to use the word fun, so it's not a mind-numbing, eye-melting grind fest. Some of the other changes are Mythic Uniques can now be, or this was already in the game previously, they can be equipped from level 35, which means that you can level alts really efficiently with uniques that sort of designate specific builds like the Grandfather Sword and things like that. They're really focused on expanding the power fantasy in the game. So some of the adjustments that will be coming into the 2.0 will be to give the player a lot more power, which also leads to power creep, unfortunately, but it just is the way the game has to go moving forwards. Now, some other more factual things are the new max character level will be level 60 instead of level 50 in the 2.0 expansion. This also means you'll get 10 more skill points overall compared to what you previously had. There is new pacing being added around the level progression. Now, this has been a huge issue with Diablo 4. I feel like it's just never had it perfectly right. Basically, the less challenges you're doing, you're going to make less XP, which is fair enough. More challenges and more difficulty equals more XP. This will speed your leveling up. So if you want to attempt a lot more stuff earlier on, you're going to be rewarded. I really like the pit. The pit, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, was added in. It's accessible from level 60 now in the game. It's essentially the Rift and Greater Rift system out of Diablo 3, which everybody liked. So now, for anyone who hasn't played the game for a while, Helltide farming is a thing. It's what you can see on the screen. And it's basically the most efficient way to level up your character if you're not going to replay the campaign again. And this is going to continue to be the go in the 2.0 expansion from what they mentioned in the Campfire. Now, in 2.0, there will be item power adjustments to accommodate the level 60 cap, shifting from level 50 to 60, so there'll be changes to gearing. One of the changes will be sacred items will no longer be dropping. This will now be called ancestral items for moving forwards, and these are going to be significantly more powerful and more customizable than what the sacred items previously were. Also, new passives being added to the game are really awesome. So a few that stuck out to me were, for example, being able to play the Thorns Barbs. So there's a new passive that's being added to the game for that, which is Barbed Carapace. I really like this. I think this should have been out on the release. But yeah, basically allows you to play a Thorns Barb properly, which is like the old Crusader build out of Diablo 3, which I really enjoyed because it was almost like an AFK build to an element of it. Druid Pet Summoners will be sort of a thing also with the new One with Nature passive. It looks like they're really sort of doubling down with minions in the next build, the next 2.0 expansion. And Sorc Summoners with the new Familiar skill as well, or Keystone, will actually be, or Skill Keystone, will actually be a lot more viable, and they're actually adding itemization to buff this up as well further. Now, the biggest change that's coming to the game, rune words. Rune words are amazing. So for anyone who played Diablo 2, you would be aware of what a rune word actually is, and essentially they're coming back to Diablo 4, or they're coming to Diablo 4. Now, the way that they've pitched this is how they work is you just take your runes as they drop, you combine the words into your gear as you did in Diablo 2. So the same, you have sockets in your gear, you put your runes in, it builds the rune word. Now, the biggest advantage with this is you're able to essentially use skills from other classes in your class that is not innately able to use certain skills, which means that you can cross-class combo skills and things like that, create efficiencies and all that sort of jazz. This personally is a fantastic change, and I think this will make the game significantly more fun. And in Diablo 2, there were a number of leveling rune words as well that you would farm early runes on, so there was a tiered rune system in that game. And if they've done anything very similar to that, this could actually be one of the biggest, most significant changes, which is going to make the game a hell of a lot more fun and feel a lot more like Diablo 2 than what it's currently felt like. I'm actually really for this. I think it's great. I think everybody would be on the same page. Adding red words is a huge jump in the right direction for Blizzard, and it's sort of got me back on point with this game. Might be redeemable just yet. Alright, so the next topic on this video that I wanted to cover off is why I'm not going to compare Diablo 4 with Path of Exile 2 or even Path of Exile 1. Now, from the, I guess, first point of the discussion or topic at hand, they're just totally different games. There's not a lot between them that makes them similar. They may have similar mechanics, but there is a level of complexity in Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1 that just doesn't exist in Diablo 4. That being said, Diablo 4 has its own nuances as an ARPG, such as the Paragon system and soon-to-be Rune system, and there's definitely skill combos there, but they're just not the same game. They have a totally different audience for the most part. There are definitely diehard fans of Diablo 4, and there's tons of people that play Diablo 4 because it's like iPhone versus Android in a lot of circumstances. iPhone is just what people know, and it's more accessible to an element of it, even though you might like Android. A lot of people just go with iPhone irrespectively, and that's just how it is. And so I'm not going to disparage either audience. Obviously, I'm very pro Path of Exile 2. I just don't think that there's a conversation where you could cross the two over and fairly compare what is two totally different games at the end of the day. You have a studio that's more invested in the community than what Blizzard is these days. Blizzard is very much a very corpo sort of entity, and that's okay. Most gaming companies are, but I think we need to take that into consideration as well. Now, Blizzard, in their defense too, and I know a lot of people won't make this defense, they are trying, right? So they're introducing new ideas, they're introducing new ways to gear up your character and upgrade things in ways that other games are doing it as well. And Path of Exile inversely does this, like crafting system changes and deterministic crafting and all that sort of stuff. There are definitely introductions from games like Last Epoch into Diablo 4's crafting system now, as well as, ROG crafting in Path of Exile. So they all just take mechanics from each other and sort of recycle things. Path of Exile 2 will be a totally different game than even Diablo 4. Now, Diablo 4 is already behind the 8 ball. Is it really a competitor of Path of Exile 2? Yes and no, not entirely. It's now a game that is finally starting to find its feet, but it's just not quite there, whereas Path of Exile 2 is probably going to launch with issues, but much more polished than where Diablo 4 currently is. Diablo 4 still has a bit of progression to go before it gets back to where it needs to be, and I realistically feel like Diablo 4 will essentially just turn into what Diablo 3 ended up being at the end of the day, and it'll be like a sort of combination between Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 ultimately, with elements that make Diablo 4 its sort of own thing, but nothing really innately unique. That's basically how I feel about it. It's just a totally different player base between the two games, and to compare them is really only going to introduce ire from both communities, and I just don't think it's a productive discussion. You can compare the mechanics and look at the differences between the games, but this is the old differences versus variances conversation, and they're two completely different topics at the end of the day. Anyway, that's why I'm not going to compare Diablo 4 to Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2. It's why I don't generally post Hatchet videos doing exactly that, because I don't think it's very productive. I think if you like a game, you should be allowed to like the game that you like for whatever reasons. Personally, I love Diablo's storyline. I don't think it's the best endgame system, and definitely I'm heavily invested in a Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2 when that comes out. I do really want to play the expansion for Diablo because I want to know where the storyline goes, but I'm interested to see what everything looks like. And that's why I'm going to be getting into it over the next week. In particular, I've got the week off as well, so I've got nothing else better to do, so I might as well play Diablo 4's expansion, which just so happened to be coming out at the same time. Anyway, if you like videos like this, where we go into a bit of ethics and sort of methodical discussion about things, as well as cover off on a bit of Diablo 4, which I don't usually cover on the channel, don't forget to like and sub to the channel. I'm also really boosting up the X these days, so I'm trying to get that one going. And also I stream over on Twitch, so don't forget to check that out too. Anyway, I will see you guys next time. There'll be some more videos coming out as well in the next day, in the next 2 days actually. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys later on. Have a good one.